Welcome to How Do They Afford That, the podcast that peeks into the financial lives of everyday Australians. I'm Michael Thompson. I'm a writer and the co-host of the Fear and Greed Business Podcast. As always, I'm with Canna Campbell, financial planner, founder of Sugar Mama TV, the financial literacy platform covering YouTube, podcasts, books, Instagram, and more, and a ferocious shuffler of papers. Every time we start, you seem to kind of wriggle these papers around. No, it's good. It makes it feel like we're going to get into business today, and we've got a very serious topic to get to. But first, how has your week been? Have you done anything fun?
Well, I'm reading a book at the moment called How to Be Remembered.
Oh, I know this book because I wrote it.
I know you did. It's brilliant.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm glad to hear you're enjoying it. It's been out now for nearly 2 months now. So it launched on February 28 here, and it comes out in the US in June, in about 2 months' time.
How many languages is it now written?
It is going to now as well. It's coming out it'll be translated into Italian and German and Czech and Portuguese, and now Polish as well. The film rights and everything have sold. So look, it is available wherever you get books. How to Be Remembered is the name of it. And I'm just glad you're enjoying it. It would be so awkward if you weren't, or you would just never mention it again. And I'd just be like, hey, Canna,
I'd just lie through my teeth, to be honest.
You could be doing that now.
I'm not.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I promise.
That's encouraging to hear. Thank you. A really serious topic today, and it's one that we have alluded to in the past as well. We've talked a lot about super, and we did a fair bit a couple of weeks ago, and we briefly mentioned the critically important issue of women and super, and this huge imbalance between men and women and their super balances when they retire, and basically throughout much of their kind of careers as well. And so today I want to talk to you about what needs to be done, say, to improve the system, whether kind of we can make kind of structural changes to the way that it is done, but also what steps women can actually take to turbocharge their own super as well.
I like that. Turbocharge.
It just came to me. I turbocharge, and it kind of sums up what you really need to do. That it's you've got to give it that kind of boost.
Yeah. Because
superannuation is one of the two biggest investments that you will potentially ever have. Kind of the first potentially being your home, and superannuation being the other big one. Am I right with this?
Yes, you are. And in fact, if you pay attention to your super correctly and give it the right type of TLC, it actually could quite possibly be your biggest financial asset, particularly if you start early in life. But we'll talk about lots of different things. So this is appropriate for everyone at every stage of your life. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you're listening, make sure you know that everything we talk about is general in nature. It's never personal investment, strategic or product advice. It is for financial education purposes only.
And this is particularly important for this episode because we're going to be talking about different ideas and different strategies that people can go and research about to help fix their super if they're stressed and worried. So please, when you're researching, contact a financial planner and ask them for personal advice.
How bad is it? Just how bad is this difference between men and women when it comes to super balances?
It's really bad. It's really frightening. I don't think people are really aware of just how concerning and alarming these statistics are. So I was looking at the Australian Human Rights Commission, and half of all women aged 45 to 59 have $8,000 or less in their superannuation funds.
No.
Yeah, I've got goosebumps.
Are you serious? Yeah. $8,000 or less.
Yes.
Half of all women. What were the ages again?
Between 45 and 59. And I am not surprised at all.
That is horrifying.
The average superannuation payout for women is 1/3 the payout for a male. And this is what really makes me sad, is there has been a 30% increase in homelessness of elderly women.
Goodness me.
These are our mothers. These are our grandmothers. These are our aunts. Like, this is really frightening.
I'm actually a little bit speechless. Because you hear about this, you hear kind of people talking about imbalances and things, but these stats are terrifying.
Sickening.
Yeah. How does it get so bad? I mean, there's, and look, I'll tread fairly kind of carefully with this, but I would imagine there are some of these things that because super is something that accumulates so much over time, and it harnesses the power of time and compound interest, that disruptions, particularly kind of early to mid, in terms of the accumulation phase, could derail somebody's super potentially. Things like potentially women pausing careers to have children or leaving their jobs altogether to raise kids. Also then the gender pay gap that we see then in roles where men and women are doing roughly equivalent kind of roles, but there is a difference in what they're being paid. What else? I'm on the right track there with those?
Yes, absolutely. But it goes further. So people taking care of elderly parents. I know lots of my friends' parents who've had to stop going back to work or cut back to part-time work to take care of their elderly parents or their elderly aunts and uncles. And then time out of their career also reduces their value, particularly if you're working in an industry that is very dynamic. And if you take a year or two out of the market as such, you're kind of old news. You don't have the skill set or the education or the training that is relevant for what you need right now. And then there's also the issue of flexibility, particularly with children. A lot of my friends are, professionals, but they have to pick one or the other. They either work, say a lawyer has to work, crazy hours Monday to Friday, and sometimes over the weekend. There's nothing halfway. Or, there's not much part-time work. And then if there is part-time work, you've got the cost of childcare. My daughter goes to daycare 2 days a week. It's $190 a day, and we get nothing back. Now, when I look at what I earn per day, you can understand why a lot of people are actually choosing to not go back to work, and it's cheaper for them to stay at home with the children. One of my girlfriends, she went back to work, but she worked out she was making $10 a day after paying for childcare. And for her, she's like, I just want to stay relevant because if I step out, I'm not going to get the same opportunities. I'm not going to get the same career progression. I really do stunt my career path. And she's someone who loves her job, very, very passionate. So it's very easy. And then obviously you mentioned the pay gap, but then there's the pink tax as well. Women tend to pay for the same items, but at a higher price.
There's a lot in all of that. And I suppose the question is, how can the system change? Because obviously that change is needed. And I know that there was some legislation fairly recently in terms of, I think it was the Workplace Gender Equality Amendment, which is designed to kind of close the gender pay gap. And I think it kicks in 2024, where employers with over 100 employees will have to publish their gender pay gaps, which, visibility on this is important, is very important. But it doesn't stop it from happening. What's the solution? This is a big question for you. What's the solution here, Canna?
All right, look, we are making progress, but unfortunately it's happening way too slowly. We really need to put pressure on the right people to speed this up and get better systems and changes in place. Now, one of the big changes is everyone is now entitled to superannuation. Previously, you had to earn over a certain amount to qualify for it. It's around about $450 per month, and that's been removed. So this actually benefited over 200,000 women in Australia. The other thing is we've got to do is improve the financial literacy. This is essential because people need to understand the consequences of stepping out. They need to understand the options. They need to understand the strategies that are available. They need to be able to know when to ask for help. So financial literacy is incredibly important for both, fixing damage, but also being proactive and mindful and strategies and solutions going forward.
Do you think financial literacy is improving? Do you think it is getting better? Because and maybe this is because I work in a space where we are talking about a lot of business news and a lot of finance, so I see a lot of kind of financial literacy and organisations kind of popping up, big organisations, things like Commonwealth Bank and others that are really trying to push financial literacy. It feels like there's a lot of material out there, but is it getting to the right people? Is it making a difference, do you think?
I do, but I think people need to be ready.
Yeah.
Is that, I think a Buddhist saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. you can't jam financial literacy down anyone's throat.
Yeah.
And sadly, it's when someone is drowning in credit card debt, then they ask for help. It is that sort of issue, but it's getting there, but it's got a long, long way to go. And I think it's about creating financial literacy in a fun, engaging way where you really focus on empowerment rather than like boring financial literacy there. And there's a lot of boring, dull financial literacy out there, which even sends me to sleep. And I think that's why Sugar Mama was actually built to give back, because my own girlfriends, who I love dearly, didn't understand how to pay a credit card off. They didn't understand what a credit card debt can do to your credit score. They didn't understand how to save for an investment property. They didn't understand what stocks and shares were. They didn't understand anything. So one of the reasons I launched Sugar Mama was actually to give back. And through my YouTube channel, which is my biggest platform, people could access these bite-sized, fun, engaging videos where I showed people how to do money in a fun, engaging, lighthearted way, not a dull, dry, boring way of a man sitting wearing a suit behind a desk telling you you're not allowed to take your lunch to work. I mean, I try and do it in a way where it's not about getting rid of the nice things, but having a responsible balance in your life. So it is changing, but we've just got to, I think, really do it in the right way. And hopefully our podcast is helping people.
Yeah, hopefully so. Now, I'm sorry, I interrupted you as you were kind of going through some of the ways that we can kind of change. What's next after financial literacy? Look,
there's got to be a change in legislation. We need paid superannuation whilst on maternity leave or parental leave. That has got to be standard for everyone.
Because that goes back to what I said when I took a punt at some of the causes in terms of people pausing their career for kids. That seems like a fairly easy fix.
It is, but obviously it's an expensive fix. And you think about a lot of small businesses, how that would impact their bottom line. So we need to be obviously respectful of that. But even if there's something where you got, say, 3 months of paid super, that would be a great start. We can work with that. But we've got to start and get on this path. Also, we've got to have workplaces that really support flexibility. You know that saying, if you want a job done, give it to someone who's busy?
Yep.
I'll tell you what, working mothers are busy.
Yeah.
You want something done and I'm busy, I will get it done and I'll get it done the right way the first time and get it back to you and wrapped in the ribbon. So we need a workplace that goes, okay, all right, you've got daycare, pick up and drop off. All right, you can work these hours and these days. And really, at the end of the day, if you've got a good staff member, if they're getting the work done and it's of great quality and they're getting it done on time, we need to really, I think, reward that. It's not about punching out the hours. The other thing is we've got to make everyone available to be able to access financial advice or even financial counselling. And look, a lot of employers are now bringing on in-house financial planning, and they'll pay for the first appointment or they'll pay for the financial plan. And even myself, I've been doing a lot of work with big corporates, doing a lot of keynote events, talking about financial well-being and really talking to their staff about all the things they need to be thinking about and considering and options available. So I'm seeing definitely companies get on board and really make sure that their staff are taking care of their money. And it makes sense because when you're stressed about money, you daydream at work. You don't concentrate. The quality of your work falls. You make errors. So it does go part and parcel. It will benefit not only the staff but also the employees when they put a financial wellness program in their corporate work-life balance. Also, spouse contributions. We've got this spouse contribution, which I'll explain in a second, but it is so archaic. It is so out of touch. And I know I'm probably becoming a little bit political, but it needs to be better. I don't really know many people who use the spouse contribution. That's not to say it's not worth doing or not, but it's just not that much of a winner when you look at the numbers behind it. And we've also, I think, really need to put systems in place that support people. And I say women, but we should say whatever sex you choose to associate with, and also whether it be a male that's stepped out of the workforce to take care of kids, because we do see that more and more these days. But we need an assistance or a coaching program that allows women or helps women learn how to negotiate their package, negotiate their salary so that they turn up educated and informed. They know that Joe Smith in the desk next to them is being paid this much. They know that they need this to be able to do their job. They know that they need this type of, balance, these types of days off, this ability to work from home. So we need someone that goes in and goes, all right, this is what the market's paying. This is what you want. Let's work this package for you so that you're a happy employee and you stay with us for the long run.
So that's not saying at all that women are worse at negotiating or anything.
No.
It's largely about making sure they have the information that they need in order to go in and get a fair, good deal.
Yes, it's about women understanding their worth. And if you, maybe I'm coming from a personal point of view, but if I talk to a lot of my friends who've stepped out of work to raise children, even on a part-time basis, they're incredibly nervous and shy and vulnerable in going back to the workplace because they feel they have to, really overcompensate and really work extra hard to prove themselves. And they feel very, very insecure because they don't realize their worth to the business. So I think there needs to be some sort of coaching process in place to help understand your worth, give you the right skills and confidence to say, all right, and also to be able to articulate what you want. Because if you've been out of the workforce for so long, you forget about all the different things you can do in a package to make it work for you. And if you structure your package up front first, it makes it a lot easier going forward rather than having to renegotiate a new package 3 months later or 6 months later, and having to suffer in the meantime. And then finally,
have you seen? Sorry to interrupt. Have you seen women accept packages that are worse than they should have, and then kind of almost resent the decision to go back to work when they see kind of Joe Bloggs kind of doing the equivalent job, and they're going, I'm doing the same work as him. Why did I accept what they offered me just because I didn't think I was worth more?
Absolutely. At the time, they were just so grateful for a job and to be able to get back in the workplace. They didn't really realize what they could be negotiating and where their rights were and really what their value was. So, yes, absolutely. And they're the people that end up, being really unhappy at the workplace and it just doesn't work. So that's why I think having these systems in place. And then finally, I think we've really got to change the caps because there are a certain amount of caps per financial year as to how much you can put into super. But if we want women to pay attention to their super, we want women to be able to use their super so that potentially we can even get rid of the age pension. And I know I'm talking way down. I'm thinking big here and I'm very ambitious in my goals. But if everyone pays attention to their super and they have a lot of money in superannuation, they use it wisely, they invest it properly, they pay attention, they contribute to it, they do all those things that we talked about in our episode where we talk about super being sexy, we may be able to one day, and I know it's a pipe dream, but scrap the age pension, not have to rely on the government for support, which is a pretty miserable existence. So perhaps we need to have special exceptions where we can have greater opportunities to catch up on missed superannuation contributions to be able to help bridge that gap.
Is part of this as well, and part of the equation, the fact that women statistically live longer than men as well. So they are actually trying to do more with less money in terms of trying to stretch that out. The retirement for a woman can actually be longer than it is for a man. So they're actually trying to stretch that money out for even longer.
Michael, I know you're a cynic.
Yep.
But living longer is not a bad thing.
Oh, no, I'm not saying it's a bad thing necessarily. Actually, no, I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all. I'm saying
Michael wants you to die.
I don't. Oh, that is quite a stretch.
Money.
that is quite a stretch, and that is quite an extreme financial plan. But it is, I suppose, and we've talked about this when we were talking about, I think it was the FIRE episode, financial independence, retire early. And the fact that retiring early, you can actually live for a very long time. And again, you're right. I pick it up now. I'm actually saying it like it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Which it's not. But it is something that you need to be mindful of, the fact that money needs to last for a long time. Hopefully a long time. See, there, made it sound good.
Exactly. You need to factor in not only living longer, but also the cost of potentially more medical intervention to keep living longer. So these are all things you need to be real. You need to be factual. You need to look at how much money do you really need in super? How much money are you able to live off? All these things really do add up, which is, again, why you must go and see a financial planner, and the sooner the better.
Yeah. Okay, we are going to come back in a moment and look at some actual strategies, get some ideas, things basically that might kickstart a conversation as to how women, or how anyone really, can kind of turbocharge their super, but with a real focus on trying to adjust that imbalance that exists between the super balances of men and women. All right, Kanna, we are talking about a really, really important topic here, and that is the extraordinary difference between the super funds, the super balances of men and women. And you shared a really startling stat at the beginning of the episode that half of all women aged 45 to 59 have $8,000 or less in their superannuation funds, which I'm still just gobsmacked by that. It is a really, really confronting figure. So what can women do? What are some of the and I know this is broad, but what are some of the strategies that they can actually use to boost super balances? And I suppose that's a question that might vary a little bit depending on the stage of life. I imagine as you get closer to retirement age, the focus would shift slightly.
Well, look, the good news is there are lots of things you can do, and they, as you said, they really do vary, and they'll depend on your financial goals and your financial situation and where you are in your life stage, and obviously, whether you can access your superannuation, because putting money into super too early in life you may shoot yourself in the foot because you can't necessarily access it. So obviously call out to see a financial planner, but the sooner you get onto it, the better. Replacing the missing superannuation contributions is a great start. So there's a couple of things. If you know that you are going to, in the next couple of years, take maternity leave, perhaps you can get advice around maybe starting to look at salary sacrificing now, knowing that you're going to be missing those contributions there. Also, if you're on maternity leave and you're thinking, oh my gosh, my superannuation is really suffering, perhaps you speak with your partner and say, all right, I'm not getting any superannuation contributions. What can we do to help bridge this gap before it becomes a problem? Even if you can only do 10, 15, 20% of those contributions, depending on your budget, that is still going to help make a big difference. And then when you're back in the workforce, going back to looking at salary sacrificing again to make up in the past, or perhaps you agree to put your bonus, if you get one, into superannuation. Perhaps you look at a regular investing plan into superannuation also to help catch up, or maybe something even completely different. If you're not too worried about your super, but you're worried about your financial well-being, perhaps it's time now to include an investment strategy in a comprehensive plan where, yes, you get your superannuation fixed up and sorted, but to help bridge that gap, you're also taking a two-pronged approach where you're building up an investment portfolio that will help supplement or complement your superannuation strategy. And there are things like, the spouse contribution, which I previously mentioned, which it's there, it's okay, but I'm not a massive fan of it.
I'll ask you in a sec how that works, because I want to get a bit of an understanding on that. But there was something that you mentioned there that made me think when you said that, say, you're on maternity leave and your super doesn't have any money going into it at the time, and you say to your partner, hey, what should we do? Has a justification in the past been that, no, it's better for it to kind of keep going into mine rather than kind of putting some into yours, because the more we can build this up now, the more it will grow, and it's better to have it kind of in one super fund so that the power of compound interest, et cetera, will kind of be working off a bigger base and will hopefully by retirement be a bigger amount for us both to live on. An obvious kind of point to that is the fact that it strips an awful lot of financial independence away from one of the two parties. Is this something that comes up?
Well, at the end of the day, whether something is earning a 5% rate, like say you've got $20,000 missing in someone's super, that return, whether it's in person A's account or person B's account, isn't really going to make too much of a difference. So it's kind of a false argument, okay?
Yep.
So if you're looking at the actual dollar amount that's missing,
yep.
The other thing to take into consideration is we have caps around how much money you have in superannuation, particularly when you go to retire. So if you've got one partner that's got 90% of the superannuation in their name and they're starting to reach a cap, that's going to be a problem, because they're going to exceed their cap, which then changes the tax deductibility and the efficiency of it. So there's a big argument to go, actually, no, we want to both have up to the maximum caps each, so that you're not having to have one cap between two people, but you have each individual person has their own cap. So I think there's a big argument to having it as equal and even as possible. And you think about it, raising children, we don't raise children as a 80-20 parent.
No, absolutely not.
We are responsible 50-50. So I really think that equality is essential. And, the respect that comes along with that as well.
And so then the spousal contribution, you mentioned that, and you're a little bit kind of wary of it. How does it actually work?
Okay, so there you've got to read the fine print behind this. But essentially, if your partner is earning under a certain amount, which ranges around about the $37,000 mark, you can get a tax offset up to $540 if you put around about, say, $3,000 into their superannuation account as a spouse contribution. So, look, I will admit there are young families out there, $3,000 into someone's super is valuable. But to only get a $540 tax offset is not that helpful.
Yeah.
And if you're on a tight budget, coming up with $3,000 could be stressful, and that $3,000 may be better off in the emergency money or better off being a lump sum repayment towards the home loan and saving time and interest. So I feel that's why I say it's pretty archaic. It's not that attractive. I don't see a huge amount of value in it. And to be honest, whenever I would talk about this as an idea with clients, none of them really wanted to take it up.
I don't jump at it.
No.
What if then there isn't a spouse? What are the other options then? What if someone who is on their own, or that even just a spouse contribution isn't an option? What else can you do?
There are more options and strategies available. For example, there's the downsizer contribution. So if you live in your own home and you think, I am getting close to retirement, I don't have enough money in retirement, you are allowed to sell your home, and there's a window where you can put up to $300,000 into your superannuation, and that will help beef it up. And that's for people who own their home. They may still have a mortgage. They need to be obviously careful of that because that needs to be paid out. But it's a great way of freeing up some money if you're looking at, moving from a house, say, into an apartment or even into an aged care facility. That's something that's available. Even salary sacrificing is available to anyone, regardless of your situation with a partner or without. Then there's after-tax contributions as well. And there is something which I've touched on previously, which is the active asset contribution, which is if you own your own business and you sell it, you can put a large component into superannuation that can help beef up your super, and you get a really very sexy tax savings along the way. There's the co-contribution where the government will help match your contributions. And then as well, at the end of the day, we still do have an age pension, which is a pretty miserable existence when you look at it. But perhaps that age pension will help supplement what you can do right now, where you live off your allocated pension through your super and maybe some age pension as well.
Because there's a part pension, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's a scale.
It's a scale. It works on your assets and your income.
Most important thing is to get some advice, to talk to somebody.
Yeah. Talk to a financial planner. Don't just talk to, what your friend's doing, because everyone's situation is different.
Don't talk to me.
Yeah,
I'll give very bad advice.
But get advice sooner rather than later. You won't regret it. And you'll realize quite often you'll experience a relief because you'll realize there are a lot more things you can do that are available to you that will help. And quite often it's a combination of different strategies that helps make a difference. But yeah, burying your head in the sand is the worst thing you can do. And, someone was talking to me the other day who works in the industry, that is the financial planning industry, that there are a huge amount of women living in their car. And I was only talking to a lady the other day. She was telling me how one of her really good friends is suddenly single. And once she had children, she didn't return back to the workplace because her husband was in this big, powerful job. And he always said to her, I don't want you to work. I know the kids have grown up, but I want you to stay at home and just help with the running of the house. And she was happy to fill that role. But he ran off with another woman and has left her high and dry. And my friend is actually having to house this woman because she has nowhere to go. And
that is horrific.
I've heard similar various stories like that numerous times.
God. Okay. This is such a big topic. This is a really confronting one.
Yeah. And
it's one we will be coming back to in a future episode because there's kind of more to explore.
And not to be doom and gloom, but to say to people, look, there are options. Get onto this now. And so that people listen to this podcast going, wow, I'm so glad I listened to this because I'm now going to do something about it.
Yeah, and look, we started with those really kind of confronting stats, and I think that kind of does set the tone that this is a problem, that needs a solution, and that there's involvement needed from government in terms of legislation required to change potentially around superannuation being paid when somebody is on maternity leave. And we talked about all of those and the importance of financial literacy, better support for workplace flexibility, assistance even for women kind of negotiating salaries upon their return to work potentially, and changes in caps for women to be able to catch up or plan in advance for retirement. And that really those proactive strategies for planning for retirement are best, kind of replacing those missing super contributions, investing elsewhere, looking at salary sacrificing, consider or talk about the options and whether a spouse contribution, for instance, is one of those, but just get professional advice and decide what is right for you. And look at those other things that you were talking about there at the end, kind of where the downsizer contribution, salary sacrificing, which we mentioned, after tax contributions, and also the fact that a professional advisor will be able to give you advice that is specific to your circumstances. So suddenly that they may go, hey, you own your own business as you're heading into retirement. There are options available for you that would not necessarily be available for other people. That getting good professional advice is really key to this.
Absolutely, not just financially, but also emotionally as well. And the other final thing I want to chime in there is, if you are in a relationship and you are about to go on maternity leave or on maternity leave or getting back into the workforce from being on maternity leave, and you're in a relationship, talk to your partner and say, this is how my situation has been impacted. How do we fix this? And work on fixing it together. Don't put all the stress and pressure on your own shoulders to try and make all that catching up. You made the sacrifice and the decision for the betterment of your family and the well-being to step out of the workforce part-time or full-time, permanent or temporary. You shouldn't have to wear that cost yourself. So work together as a team to help rebuild it.
All right. Plenty on today's episode. Where do people find you if they want more information?
Well, we have Sugar Mama's Fire Play published every Monday morning. On YouTube, I publish a fresh video every Thursday afternoon. And then Instagram, where I am pretty much out and about every day with my crazy world at Sugar Mama TV and Canna Campbell Official.
Excellent. And you can hear me every day with Sean Aylmer on Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business news podcast. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, you can also find my novel, How to Be Remembered, wherever you buy books. Thank you very much for listening to How Do They Afford That? Remember, hit follow on the podcast. Please leave us a review as well. Next week, we're talking about wealth protection through insurance. It is, I was going to say surprisingly important, but it shouldn't be a surprise, should it? It's actually common sense. We'll be getting into that one next week. Don't miss it.